Janavalabha Girivanadari Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravikadrajacharya Shotar Shatashi Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya All right, so reading from Canto 3, Chapter 8, text 28 to 29, chapter entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu. So I'll chant 28 and then we can chant 29 together. So, because that has the purport. Kadamba Kinjauka Pishanga Vashasha Svalikritam Mekhalayani Tambe Harina Chananta Dhanena Vasta Srivasta Vaksha Stalavalabhena. O my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the Kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with the Srivasta mark and a necklace of unlimited value. Okay, so text 29. Paradhya Keyura Mani Praveka Paryasta Dordanda Sahasra Shakam Avyakta Mulam Bhuvana Angripa Indram Ahi Indra Bhogahi Adhivita Valsham Parajakeyo Ramani Praveka Paryastudur Danda Sahasra Shakam Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangripendram Ahindraboger Adivita Valsam Parajakeyo Ramani Praveka Paryashtadordanda Sahasrashakam Avyaktamulam Bhuvanen Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangri Pendram A Indra Boger Adivita Valsam Parajyakeyo Ramani Praveka Paryastado Danda Sahasrasakam Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangri Pendram I Indra Boger Adivita Valsam
Ramani Praveka Paryastadurdanda Sahasrashakam Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangripendram Ahindra Bhogar Adhivita Valsham
Pararyakeyo Ramani Praveka Paryastadurdanda Sahasrashakam Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangripendram Ahindra Bhoger Adivita Valsham
Aradhakure Ramani Praveka
Pararyakeyo Ramani Praveka
Parastadurdanda Sahasrashakam
Paryastadurdanda
Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangripendram Ahindra Bhogar Adivita Valsham Aradhyakeyo Ramani Praveka
Pararyakeyo Ramani Praveka
Paryastadurdanda Sahasrashakam
Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangripendram
Ahindra Bhogar Adivita Valsham Paradhyakeyo Ramani Praveka
Pararyakeyo Ramani
Praveka
Paryastadurdanda Sahasrashakam Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangripendram Ahindra Bhogar Adivita Valsham
Manajis Paryastadurdanda Ramani Praveka Paryastadurdanda Sahasrashakam Avyaktamulam Bhavanangripendram Ayendra Boger Avidita Vatsam. Okay, word for word. So, Paradhya, very valuable. Keyura, ornaments. Mani, Praveka, highly valuable jewels. Parashta, disseminating. Dordanda, arms. Sahasrasakam, with thousands of branches. Avyakta, Moolam, self-situated. Bhuvana, universal. Angripa, trees. Indram, the Lord. Ahi, Indra, Anantadev. Bhogahi, by hoods. Adhivita, surrounded. Valsam, shoulders. All right, translation. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was the self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, so the Lord's body was also covered by the hoods of Ananta. The word of yaktamulam is significant here. Generally, no one can see the roots of a tree, but as far as the Lord is concerned, He is the root of Himself, because there is no other separate cause of His standing but He Himself. In the Vedas, it is said that the Lord is Swashyashraya. He is His own support, and there is no other support for Him. Therefore, Avyakta means the Supreme Lord Himself and no one else. Om Jnanatam Nanjanjana Shlakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shukta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganavtam Vitam Tam Sachivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ritam Shri Vishakam Vitam Shah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitanamane. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitanamane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pashkatara Satarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chaitanya Prabhu Mande Prasana Sayavir Yata Sangarat Yadkaravata Adhati Siddhanta Sanmanim. Okay, so Kadamba Kinjalka Prasangavasa Swarlankritam Mekhalayan Ditambe Harina Chananta Danena Vasta Srivasta Vaksha Stalavalabena. O my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the Kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with the Srivasta marking and a necklace of unlimited value. Parajya Keyura Mani Praveka Prayashtado Londara Sahasrasakam Avyaktamulam Bhuvanangri Pendram Ayindra Boger Adivitavalsam. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was the self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, so the Lord's body was also covered by the hoods of Ananta. So we are continuing and almost coming to the end of this particular vision of Brahma. So in previous texts, it was mentioned just Brahma's kind of like situation. So just kind of like explaining some leading up to what's going on now, is that Brahma pretty much kind of just like, almost like woke up to some degree and just like, what the heck's going on? And so, and sometimes we experience that like when we wake up. Like if we take like a really intense nap or something, I don't know if that's happening, or you wake up like all of a sudden, you kind of like get up and you're just like, what's going on, or whatever. If you get like a really good hardcore nap in or something. So Brahma had a really intense nap. And so he woke up, and so he was like thinking like, what is like going on? And then we see that he's like, what is going on? Like, who am I? Like, what's up with this lotus? Like, what? Like, he was just like confused. He was bewildered. And so after that, I mean, these are there in those texts and such. But so he tried to figure out, like, okay, like what's going on. And so let's see here. So it's described that he he started contemplating, and then he started searching. So he started to like figure out, like, okay, like, where does this lotus go? So he began to kind of like search a little bit, and then kind of like go around and like that. And I won't be able to give you a full description because I don't really understand how all that stuff works because I'm not Brahma. Described it in the 9th canto that we all were Brahma, so maybe we've had experience some memories in our unconsciousness of understanding that situation. But you never hear anybody that gets a past life regression and then they say, well, actually in my last life I had so many heads and I was sitting on top of a lotus and I got darshan of a blue being with thousands of arms and there were snakes. You don't really hear so much of that. You hear things in my past life, I was this president or this ruler or Cleopatra or Julius Caesar or such things like that. So Brahma, in that situation, began to try to figure out what was going on. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a point that Brahma was unsuccessful. And so he kind of, and to fluff that out, Brahma was unsuccessful because he was, exhibiting his own endeavor to try to find and understand the Lord. So such situations will always fail. And so that's a foundational point in Krishna consciousness, and just what to speak of just Krishna consciousness, but just the science of approaching God is that you can't approach God by your own endeavor or understand Him by your own endeavor. It has to be understood through His devotees or by His mercy. So continuing, and I think also, Prabhupada? Maybe Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes that point. So he concludes on that so pretty much by the Lord's mercy, it's not going to happen, not going to be able to understand Him. And therefore, all materialistic endeavors will ultimately end in failure. Because without Krishna's mercy, things don't happen. And we see that so much. Anyways, people may make some discoveries and things like that. And usually I've heard His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj mention that when these inventors or whoever, they get like this eureka moment, it's due to Krishna actually. He gives them that intelligence. Otherwise, if someone's trying something and they fail, hundreds and hundreds of times and then they finally get it, it's like, what happened? So Super Soul finally gives them that intelligence to understand things. Then if you see that too, if you look at like some certain things, I can't think of anything in particular, but like some different histories of like inventions, or whatever, maybe like mathematical equations or something. Like people will have like some dream or something, and then like they'll like in that dream they'll like see like the answer to the equation or something, or whatever. Or they'll discover it by like accident. I think like penicillin or something was discovered by accident. So like that. So people, they make these big discoveries, or like they get them in dreams, or they have this eureka moment, and that's due to Krishna. That okay, like you've tried so much, you're endeavoring. So then here you go. Here's the answer to that. And like that. And some people that are inventors and intellectuals that are like in that field and they have some sanity, they kind of like understand that like this information and this knowledge is like coming from some higher source, like that. And then you have like certain scientists and philosophers would still kind of like state like that like, God did this or did that, or like there's some like force or some energy guiding me. But the point is that until we come to the platform of Krishna consciousness or in contact with the devotee, we'll never be able to understand Krishna completely. And our material endeavors will never be complete. So Brahma gives up this endeavor of trying to search out, and just to read that text. So Brahma, thus contemplating, entered the water through the channel of the stem of the lotus. But in spite of entering the stem and going nearer to the navel of Vishnu, he could not trace out the root. And then, let's see here, just skip a couple texts. Okay, so anyways, it's just, I don't have to read it exactly. But so then Brahma, he kind of like realizes like, oh yeah, I guess it's here. So thereafter, being unable to achieve the desired destination, he retired from such searching and came back again to the top of the lotus. Thus controlling all objectives, he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. So at that point, Brahma kind of like gave up, and then he started meditating on Vishnu. And so from that, he gives up his endeavor, and he begins to meditate on the Supreme Lord. And so he meditates for 100 years. It's mentioned in the next text. And let me see here something real quick. Okay. So he meditated for 100 years. And then ultimately he saw Vishnu within his heart. And then he saw this form which we see here. And I think this is a particular form that Brahma worships on Brahmaloka. It's kind of confusing, but it's like this described as like this form of Vishnu with like thousands of hands and such like that. I think it's called, what is it, Sahasra Shira Vishnu or something. I forget the exact name. So he saw that, so Vishnu within his heart. And so that's kind of like what these texts now are like explaining, this vision that he had, this transcendental television. And so we see that great sages and rishis and such, they're able to, see Vishnu within their heart, or see him like that, or whatever, see events and such. Like we see in the Bhagavad Gita that Sanjay was able to see what happened through mystic powers and such. And so such as there. Now, in the sense, it wasn't just like some mystic power that Brahma saw, but it was due to Vishnu gave him darshan. And we see that it also happened. I think that will happen. It happened previously, but we see that time and time again that Vishnu he manifests himself to the individuals. Just like, for instance, when the demigods approached the milk ocean to implore Shivjakashayi Vishnu to do something about the burden on the earth at the time with Kamsa and Jarasandhar and Aristasura, Aghasura, all these different demons, Putana. So Vishnu relayed to Brahma that he will come, but he didn't personally appear. It was just like some telepathic thing. They went to the shore because the demigods aren't allowed to enter the island of Shivjakashayi Vishnu because he resides on an island there, in that milk ocean. So they're not allowed to come. They just have to approach the shore. So the Vishnu is completely Surat, he's independent. So he manifests himself accordingly. Now when Krishna was on the planet, people were able to see him, but they didn't understand that he was God. So they saw him, but they didn't see him. Because they saw him with different people say saw different things. And we see that also with when Krishna entered the wrestling arena with all the different wrestlers. It's described that like so many different people saw him in so many different ways. The yogis saw him as the super soul, and then the cowboys saw him as the friend, and such like that. It's mentioned all these different people were seeing Krishna. I think Tranara and Mushtika were seeing him as like a thunderbolt, and then Kamsa as like death personified. There's the same Krishna, but then someone is seeing him as my best friend, someone seeing him as death, death, the Grim Reaper or something. They're just scared of him like anything. So so that verse is Premanjana Trita Bhakti Vilochanena. So Sandatsadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokyanti. So Krishna is seen with eyes anointed with love. But then people also see Krishna with eyes anointed with hate or fear or envy or so many different things. So all those different nasty visions of Krishna, there's a place for them in the material world, and so that's where individuals comes. So Brahma was perceiving Vishnu in the right consciousness, so he allowed him to get vision of him. And so these particular texts are describing that, of the vision of Brahma, of what he saw, and the form of Vishnu that he particularly saw. So today these points are being highlighted by that, explaining some of the form and and the beauty of Krishna actually. So it's mentioned. It's mentioned again and again and again in Shastra. But the thing is that Krishna's beauty is not material. So, and we see so many times that it's mentioned that Krishna has a yellow dhoti, and he has, and it's yellow, and then to give some different descriptions of that. And it's mentioned in text 28. He had a well-decorated belt, and he had the Srivastha mark on his chest, and then a necklace of unlimited value. So, anyways, a lot could be said about that. But then how amazing that necklace must have been, and that's a whole thing in and of itself. Actually, people, because in different countries and maybe different kings and rulers, they would have like different gems and valuables that like not everybody have, because it's not everybody can have whatever, like they have like, I forget what they're called, but they have like those diamonds and stuff are like this big or something, and it's not like there's like thousands of those just hanging around. I mean, you gotta like you gotta have some importance to get something like that. And then there's like, usually people try to steal those things because it's just like so like amazing. Anyway, that's a whole other topic in of itself. But we see that actually in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, that some thieves, they wanted to steal the jewels from Nimai Pandit. They were so valuable. So then they came up with some plan and they tried to steal them. But I think it was like they ran so far away. But then when they stopped, they realized they were like back where they started. So then they like freaked out, put the child down and left. And then also too, we see in the pastimes of Nityananda Prabhu that there was one miserly brahmana that wanted to rob the jewels of Nityananda Prabhu also. And so there's a whole pastime of that where he was like trying to do it, but then there was different problems. And then like the first night, I think they all went to try to steal those jewels. They all fell asleep. So they were like, what the heck is it? You can imagine there's a bunch of thieves going out, like, okay, we're going to rob this place. And then they're waiting, and then they all just like fall asleep like outside. And it's like, what the heck happened? Like, we all fell asleep. So anyway, so then they were like, okay, we'll do it again. I forget all the details exactly. So they tried again, and then there was some problem. And they were saying, okay, like the problem is that like, we didn't worship Chandi properly, so now we have to like do this like sacrifice. So they like did that, and then there was like a huge storm, I think, or something, and it was just like crazy, like catastrophic. And then they began, then they kind of like understood that, oh, like Nityananda Prabhu was like great personality, and then that brahmana like reformed and repented, and he became a great devotee. So, but we see that, generally too, it's to have something of great value, especially in Kali Yuga. It's just like, don't even do it. It's just, you're just asking for trouble. We see that so many times that people, if they get like, anyways, there's so many different things. But I mean, there's like, people steal cars, like what, and someone has a fancy car, someone will try to steal it. Or whatever it is. And that's why they have like these big fancy communities. Yeah, trailers. People try to steal trailers, and I think like jackpot. I looked that up actually. I didn't even know when that happened. I didn't even know that was a thing. I was like, someone stole a trailer. I was like, why is that? And he looked it up, and then there's like a whole article like, be careful with your trailers. People steal them because I guess people, they keep like all these expensive electric tools in them and things like that. That's thousands and thousands of dollars. So I guess people just take those, break it open, steal it, and then they sell all the power saws and jackhammers or whatever, ladders and whatever's inside. I was thinking they steal that you could sell the trailer, but then they just dump the trailer. I mean, the trailers are worth a lot. Anyways, it's whatever. But it seems like kind of easy to steal a trailer, not steal a trailer, but easy to get away with selling a trailer. It's whatever. But anyways, and then people steal trailers, and obviously people rob banks because there's money and then stuff, and then gold. Obviously, so many different things, and then people steal land. But then usually, and then there's pickpocketers and stuff like that. But people, then they have that too, jewelry thieves. So, but Vishnu doesn't have to worry about that. Who's going to come and, try to take Vishnu's necklace when he's sleeping, or whatever, or Krishna's jewels or something like that. But in Vrindavan, Krishna decorates himself with flowers and leaves and such like that, because that's the opulence of Vrindavan. But in Dwarka, Krishna has 16,108 palaces. So, like that. So, Krishna has wealth, he has beauty, he has fame, and he flaunts it because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he can flaunt it, and he can show it off. But in the material world, when people show off their wealth and show off their opulence, they get jumped. So Krishna is like that, is showing. And Krishna's beauty and Krishna's fame is something otherworldly. It's not something of this world. There's so much that can be said about this, but we'll talk a little bit about beauty. And so the beauty, the nature and position of God is extraordinary. And people today are glorified for their beauty. And specifically, it seems like beauty and fame are, in today's society, considered like topmost. Money also, but renunciation, not so much. Knowledge, it's like, whatever. It's like, who cares about knowledge, right? Some people care about knowledge, but especially if you're beautiful and famous and you have money, that's like considered like amazing. Like you made it in the world. So we see like that. So the thing is, in the material world, people are beautiful for X amount of time, not forever. And someone may be beautiful when they're born. Sometimes it's like, oh, that's a very, beautiful baby or whatever, a very cute baby. Sometimes not. Sometimes babies are really ugly. Sometimes someone growing up is, and they may go through phases. Someone's a cute baby, and then they grow up a little bit, and then they're like an ugly little child, or whatever, and then they grow up and they become a teenager, and then whatever, very handsome, and then get older, and then whatever, and then the hairline starts receding, and then weight starts gaining, increasing in mass and volume. And then they lose that, or whatever. There's people go through different phases of beauty. Generally, I've seen it growing up. It's like that. So the beautiful person of yesterday may not be beautiful today, or vice versa. But everybody's beauty ultimately fades away because people get old. But Krishna is not like that. Krishna is beautiful eternally. When Krishna is born as a child, he's very beautiful and very attractive. And all the inhabitants of Vrindavan are very much enchanted by Krishna's beauty. Even Putana was enchanted by Krishna's beauty, like that. And we see also even Vamana Dev. Vamana was a dwarf. So generally, dwarfs aren't considered like the most beautiful. But Vamana was considered very beautiful. When he walked into the sacrificial arena of Bali Maharaj, he was glowing and shining. And so they were thinking, who is this personality that has come? He's shining, and he's coming with his umbrella like that, approaching the sacrificial arena. So much can be said about that, Krishna's beauty. And then all of his different forms. It's not that just that Krishna appears as as Varaha, as a boar, that it's like, oh, he's some boar, it's, whatever. He's beautiful as a boar. Krishna appears as a fish, Matsya avatar. Very beautiful, very attractive. So all of Krishna's forms are transcendently beautiful. And of course, within that transcendental beauty, there's gradations. And Krishna's beauty in Vrindavan is of the topmost. But all of those things are transcendently beautiful. But in the material world, that beauty doesn't last forever. And then also the descriptions of Krishna's beauty. So Krishna's beauty is eternal and has depth to it. There's some meaning there to it. Because sometimes in the material world, people will glorify somebody, and that doesn't have any depth. It's just kind of like it's hollow, or it's just like superficial, right? Someone says, oh, you're such a wonderful person, you're so great, you're the best thing that's ever happened to this nation, or like you're the most, beautiful girl in the world, or whatever. But then it's like, then next week it's just like, whatever, like forget you, you're ugly, this and that. And then it's two. I mean, what to speak, I drive so many of these different peoples around, and then I guess there's some culture or something that when you drive people around in a taxi, that like they have, I don't know, but they feel like they could say whatever they want to say on the phone. So it's just like so many different things. Like this person recently, so many different people, but but one of the many recently got into a fight with, I don't even know, the boyfriend or something on the phone. And then it was like getting progressively more and more intense. And then it comes to the culmination of that you're ugly, you're nothing, you got all this money, but like it's just an inheritance, and you're broke, and everybody knows you're stupid, and then you got that surgery, and like you're limping around, and like just really going at it, and like you're nothing, and like that, you're useless. And so that's like that in the material world, because the thing is that the object there's so many different things to analyze that, but the actual the material object that the individual has attachment for, it's on the material basis. And so as soon as there's a little bit of deficiency in that sense gratification, people immediately snap. And so then they become angry at that object. And so Krishna gives that analysis in the Bhagavad Gita, right? What is that? What is it? How does that verse start off? By contemplating the objects of the senses, one becomes attached.
Dhyato
Dhyato vishayan pumsam. So they're contemplating like that. And so from that contemplation, all these different things come. Krodo bhavati sammoha. So they become angry and ultimately they enter into illusion. But that's from contemplating on the material platform. But when we contemplate on the spiritual platform, on Krishna's beauty, and on the attractiveness of Krishna's devotee, and on his pastimes and things like that, then we don't become entangled, we don't become bewildered. But there is bewilderment, because we also see that Krishna's great devotees, they become bewildered by Krishna. But that's a transcendental bewilderment. We want to be transcendentally bewildered by Krishna. So like that. So we see that in the material world. And then also too, the descriptions given of Krishna's beauty. Just to continue. Anyways, but the descriptions given of Krishna's beauty, having depth to that. So it has some meaning. Just like, for instance, it's mentioned here that Krishna's, this description is given that he's like they given an example of a tree, like a sandalwood tree. So a sandalwood tree has fragrance. And then there's so much depth to that actually, that the acharyas make, and it's explained in the purport. Just the imagery of that, and then also the philosophy of that. And just to help us understand the nature of Krishna, of Bhagavan. And so the example here is given of a sandalwood tree. And so the acharyas explain that, I haven't been in a sandalwood forest. I hope to be one day, just to understand some of these analogies that are given in the Bhagavatam. So it's mentioned that the sandalwood trees are very fragrant. And that's mentioned in different places in Bhagavatam also, of the sandalwood tree. That's mentioned there. You know that verse? I know you know it. It's mentioned in Kunti's pastimes. I don't know it, but I know you know. But that verse is there. Yeah, so it's mentioned that in that verse that Krishna has appeared in this dynasty. You want to pull that verse up? Anybody know? I think it's 1:8:38. That's probably wrong. I have no clue. I'm just guessing. 38. Just check there. What is that? What's it? No, that's not it. You know what? I have no clue where it's at. That's it? Okay, so let me just bring it. So some say that the unborn is born for the glorification of pious kings, and others say that he's born to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appear in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills. So Krishna appears in these different dynasties. So Krishna appears in these different dynasties. And there's different ways of understanding that. But he appears in these dynasties, and by appearing in these dynasties, like the Yadu dynasty, and then also we can extend that to the Iswaku dynasty, because Ramachandra appeared in that dynasty. So by appearing in that dynasty, he glorifies that dynasty, and he brings this fame to it. And so the acharyas explain with this verse that just like the sandalwood tree, it smells very nicely. So Krishna, by his beauty and by his fame, he pervades the whole material world. So similarly, Krishna, with appearing in these dynasties, he's by his fame and by his beauty, he's increasing the beauty and reputation of these dynasties also. So like that. And then also too, so many different things can be said about this. But then also I was thinking too that generally to compare somebody to a tree isn't like usually the topmost compliment. Like if you tell somebody like, you know, when I see you, like I just like think like, you know, you're the best looking tree there is in this world. You know, if someone calls you a tree, it's like, what? Like, like that. But we see that it's a good analogy actually. And anyways, usually we see some tree, we think of like some ugly looking tree, some pine tree or something with pine cones or something like that. Or trees looking funny like that. And anyways, also in Shastra too, it's given that some trees, there's pious trees and impious trees. But then also we see too that there's trees that they give so many beautiful flowers and so many different fragrances and such like that. So Krishna to be compared to a tree is well fitting, because like we were explaining previously that the sandalwood tree, that its fragrance pervades the whole universe. And then also, of course, as mentioned here, that generally snakes, they cover sandalwood trees. They like to hang out on that. So things can be said about that also, and we can just make a side point. But then also, too, we would think that even this snakes being on a tree, usually that's pretty frightening also. Like if you saw a tree with a bunch of snakes on it. And usually anacondas, they hang out on trees in the rainforest, and then I've heard, when some living entity comes, and then they just wait, and then they fall on that living entity, and then they crush it, and then they slowly eat it away. So that's pretty scary. You don't want to be under that tree. But Anantashesh, of course, he isn't, he's scary but not scary. He's scary to the demons and to those that aren't surrendered to Krishna. And it's closed, well, it's not closed, but we see right here in this with this picture of Nrsingadev. And I occasionally look at that. But if you look at Anantashesh in that picture, it looks very frightening. And then that's also, that description is given there in the 7th canto. And other cantos also, but specifically with this Leela. And if you look at him, it's like you see like his tongue's coming out, and then you can see his fangs are like very prominent. And I don't know, one snake is like pretty scary, like if I saw one snake like that. But what to speak of like a 1,000-hooded snake like that. So that's very, very scary. But Anantashesh is a devotee. And there's different expanses of understanding of Anantashesh. One is that of a jiva that's empowered, and then the others is generally it's explained as Balaram, an expansion of Balaram. So Anantashesh he's for the devotees, he's very peaceful and very kind, and he eternally serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead by being his bedstead. So this description is even more transcendently wonderful and fitting. And so Brahma is seeing that, and what is this here? Markandeya Rishi is also explaining that. So the explanations and examples given, they have so much depth. So it's not just, some superficial glorification, but this glorification is heartfelt, and can be expanded upon unlimitedly. The glorification of the beauty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his position. And then so also too, just, and then anyways, but the smell of the sandalwood is very attractive. And so the Srila Prabhupada in this particular purport, he emphasizes the word avyakta moolam. And so he makes the point that no one can see the roots of a tree. So giving the philosophical depth to that of this tree. No one can see the roots of a tree. And generally you can kind of see the beginning of the roots of trees sometimes, but you can't really see the system underneath that's going on within the tree. And so to get into that some. So, and we understand that like of the tree, so the tree isn't just standing on whatever the ground. So the tree is rooted into the soil, into the earth by its roots. And so if just like if you cut a tree, it'll still remain there because it's rooted in the ground. And to get a stump out is like a whole thing. You can't just get a shovel and just pull it out. It's locked up in there. We can see in the backyard too. I'm hitting this table like anything today. But we can see in the backyard, all these huge trees, they're there and they're supported. How are they supported? And there's huge winds that are coming and they're blowing back and forth. It's because they're firmly rooted in the ground with their complex root system. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is like a tree in the sense that because he's the root of this cosmic manifestation, and he's the cause of all causes, and there's no other cause except him. It's not that Krishna is rooted in the material world by some other thing like that. Or there's some other cause, and then that's like a famous question amongst, I guess, some class of people that okay, if God created everything, who created God? And then that's just boom, I got you. And then it's anyways, but who created God? Nobody created God. That's the whole point. It's It's like, I'm trying to think of like water's liquid. So then it's like, it's like it's intrinsic. So like intrinsic to like God is that He's the creator of everything. Nobody created Him. It's like that's like an axiomatic truth. It's like whatever. They have like their laws, these scientific laws that like, are like they can't be challenged. They're there or whatever. Like their so-called understanding of gravity and so many different things, and you can't challenge that. But then they bring up these different things, and it's like, oh, this is nonsense or whatever. They're cheaters and the cheated, and they have this atheistic temperament. So everything that they have this atheistic temperament. I think Prabhupada made that point in one purport. But they just can never understand. And then we come back to the beginning with Brahma. So for eternity, they're just going to grope around in the darkness of the universe and chase different stars and whatever, and different things, and with their telescopes, measuring this and measuring that and speculating on what happened 300 million years ago. They'll never be able to understand. And so they'll always just be in that position. There'll always be atheism. I was thinking too, even if some other planet was discovered and in the universe, and then they were able to understand there was life on it or whatever, of some different beings, even then still they would still like, no, there isn't no God, there can't be. They would have some different theory. Well, then this atmospheric pressure and this like this, and then all those different things. They'll never be able to understand or never be able to accept those things. But Krishna here is the root. So it's mentioned here, avyakta moolam. And so He's the transcendental root, and He's the cause of everything. And there's no separate cause except Him. He's His own support. Everything comes from Him. This is the position of Bhagavan. And so Krishna made the world. He made the situation. And so it's also too, they even add examples. So it's not like you have a seed, so that you could say that the seed is the cause of the tree, so the cause of the root. But that's not the case with Krishna. There wasn't some seed that caused Him. And we see that too, Brahma. Brahma says, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarvakar and Akaranam. That He's the cause of all causes. So this is the position of Krishna, of Vyakta Moolam, self-situated. And then we can also understand another understanding of that too, is Vyakta Moolam could be transcendently rooted. So like that. Avyakta, there's so many different ways that this verse could be explained. Avyakta is a huge word, and so many different understandings of that in Sanskrit, and also in Srila Prabhupada's books, unmanifested and transcendental like that. So, Avyakta Moolam. So he's transcendentally rooted within the material world, and from Him everything is coming. And we'll end here, and so we'll read one thing. You can bring this up. I should have brought this up in the beginning. So I'm going to read from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, texts 3 to 4. And so this is a very amazing chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, like every other chapter. It's one of my favorite chapters, actually. So in this chapter, Krishna also describes a tree. So he describes a tree that's is on the reservoir of water. And so Prabhupada makes an interesting point in this purport here, so we'll read that. So there's the transcendental tree, and then there's the material tree. And so anyways, you can say too that the scientists and philosophers and all the mundaners, they're so absorbed in this tree and the reflection, but they'll never be able to understand that. So I'll just read this translation, and then I'll read the first paragraph because it's relevant. So narupama shesha tato palabhyate na cho na chardir na cha sampratishta ashvatam enam suvirura moolam asanga shastrena dridena chatva tatat patam tat parimargitwayam yasmin gatana nivartani bhuyaha tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yata pravritti prashvrita purani. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of attachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. And so now the purport. It is now clearly stated that the real form of the banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world. Since the root is upwards, the extension of the real tree is at the other end. When entangled with the material expansions of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. Yet one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father is the son of such and such, a person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Finding in this way, one reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the end of research work. So that was Brahma, right? He came and then he wasn't like that, but he found out his father. And then that was the end of his research work. One has to search out that origin of this tree, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality, and by knowledge, one can cut off the connection and actually become situated in the real tree. So that's that. And so that the point is that Prabhupada is making the point of cutting off the attachment of this material world, this material tree, and then being situated in the real tree. And so the real tree is Krishna. And so this verse is kind of hinting at that. And so anyways, to summarize, so Brahma is getting darshan of Vishnu, and as we'll see here in the next chapter, he'll pray for Vishnu's mercy, that he doesn't become bewildered in the execution of his task of recreating the material world. So we can stop there if there's any questions or comments about anything.
Regarding the tree, I would like to add something more.
Yeah, go for it.
In Andhra Pradesh, there is a place called Kadri, where Lord Nrsimhadev temple is their famous temple. So there is a tree, banyan tree, single tree, which is spread over 4 acres. 4 acres.
Yeah.
And nobody can find out where is the root. It is 700 years old.
How many years?
700.
700.
Generally, the tree which Krishna speaks, it is actually the banyan tree.
Yeah.
Because the roots of the banyan tree, nobody can find out. Any tree one would find out, but the banyan tree, it's impossible to find out where is the root, like where it began.
Yeah.
So basically, urdhva moolam adashakam. So urdhva, what is that? Aswadha prahuravyam.
Yeah.
Aswadha vriksha. That's I wanted to just add that.
Yeah, I've seen banyan trees, like their roots come, and then it's like from the branches, it goes down, and then down, and then...
In India, children play, of course, in India, sorry, in the tract of land called India. No, they play in this swinging. In many temples, you have these banyan trees, they play a lot, swinging from one place to another. It's very good. We used to play a lot.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Anything else?
And Prabhupada used this tree analogy many times.
Yeah.
One is this material world and spiritual world. And tree analogy is for, what is that? Trinadapi sunichena.
Oh, yeah.
Tarorapi savishnana. Taror. Taror means the tree. It should be tolerant like a tree.
Yeah.
So, and what else? Any other example for?
What did you say? Oh, Tamal tree. You're saying
Tamal tree, yes, Tamal tree. Of course. Another one Prabhupada uses, and I used to, whenever I was there, I was thinking of this example. There are these creepers, many of the creepers here, they what is that? They tangle to these big trees. So just like, huh?
Vines?
Any
Oh,
creeper,
okay.
any creeper they entangle in these big trees because the tree is very large, huge, and it is firmly fixed, and this creeper it gets attached to that tree. So in that way, this our acharyas, everybody are like the big trees where our Bhaktilata beach can be. We can
Yeah.
firmly hold the tree.
Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Say something.
About trees also, this is an analogy. Then the tree can give any facilitation, like this is wood and shadow,
Yeah.
and this, like all this. And another one is like the people who like to go without dress, they also next life they can be
Yeah.
a tree. And then this like when Krishna and Balaram they came to the forest, and all these trees try to touch them.
Yeah.
This is like by branches. It is also it's some meaning also was there. I forget like what is it. It's
They were, I think they had like fruits on their branches, right? And they were like something like that. They were trying to like offer them or something.
and they like to touch also by
Yeah.
branches the bodies of
Yeah.
Krishna and Balaram.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then also too is, anyways, that's another thing. But then they were saying that someone personalized to become trees. Vrindavan. That's also there.
Devotees are also like desire trees.
There you go. Kalpa-vriksha. Anyways, the Kalpa-vriksha. Prabhupada said that there's a tree in the spiritual world that the Kalpa-vriksha can give mangoes and can give samosas. And one devotee gasped in the audience. Well, the devotee that gasped seemed like he had the mic next to his mouth because you could hear that like clearly in the recording. Yeah.
You were mentioning Lord Anantadev is very frightening to the demons.
Yeah.
So does he just appear that way, or is there any pastime of like Lord Anantadev like actually getting involved with demons?
There's not that I can think of like directly off the top of my head of like Anantadev kind of just like straight going and like a demon or something. I was thinking specifically we see with this pastime here with Nrsingadev that Anantadev is like there and it's like there's description of him like whatever like that. I know at the end of the universe Anantadev gets angry that the conditioned souls they haven't surrendered to Krishna and they just continue on in the material nonsense and then he burns up the material world like that. Yeah. So that's there. But I can't think of like any specific Leela of just like Anantadev just kind of going like as like a snake and attacking somebody. I don't know.
If it is just the state, then there is whole pastime about
Yeah.
Shirasagar. What is that? Churning of the ocean. Not the sea journey.
Oh yeah. That's Vasuki's name. Yeah.
I was gonna say, to your point about these different inventors and scientists who like figure things out, and they might think that it's by dint of their own endeavor, and they're not realizing it's the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And coming back, Prabhupada, I think it's an excerpt. I think it was an article. Maybe it was an Origins magazine or Back to Godhead magazine, but he essentially was responding to a surgeon who had figured out how to make like heart transplants possible. There's a lot of intricacies in that, and like it didn't like go into detail, but essentially this surgeon in his 30 years he basically recognized, he's like, in all my years of work, he's like there has to be like a soul that's like present. And he like accepted this, and like he essentially had like this committee of scientists, and they were talking about how can we like figure this out, like how can we essentially like it's not like something you can like just like analyze like under like a telescope. So like how can we go about like trying to confirm, I guess, the existence of the soul? And Prabhupada was essentially he essentially like I guess kind of commended him or like applauded him, but made the point that the soul is situated in the heart, and the only reason that of which you're able to find success in this is because I guess the recipient of the heart like unless the soul actually enters into that, that's what's making it all possible. Like, yeah, there's all these different material circumstances that have to be in order, maybe, that you can arrive at, but ultimately, if the soul isn't welcomed into the heart, or if the soul doesn't enter into the heart, the whole thing is moot, essentially.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, there's so many classes of people that they have like, they may not understand like the details, but they understand that there's like God and there's a soul. And there's a lot of people like that, but it's just that this other atheistic part just gets to the forefront, just with the way, I mean, there's could be different explanations of that, I don't want to get into it, but just the way that like society is like set up currently, it's like that gets like the foreground, you know, like the scientist is like, or whatever, they made the system like that. You have to be like atheistic to like get ahead. But there's so many people that are like scientists and surgeons in all fields that they believe in God, and then they see like, they have some like semi like spiritual or, you know, whatever experience. You know, what I mean by like spiritual is like they have like some realization there's like a soul or there's like a God or something like that. So, Giri?
Anyway, I was trying to look for this verse, but like,
Say it again, sorry.
I was trying to look for this verse that is like, you were like, because you were talking about like the supreme unlimited beauty of the Lord, like how it's like, you know, people like when they get old, like, you know, it's like, oh, their beauty is always changing and stuff like this. So like, there is this verse I was trying to like, I remembered, but I can't find it anyway. I was
I
trying
hope
to
you
find
find it.
I know where I have it on my phone, but anyway, this is the translation. O my Lord, those who are completely free from material contamination can see your transcendental form and glories, but those who are not spiritually advanced cannot estimate the extent of your glories, for they are unlimited.
Mm.
So like I was like thinking, like you were saying, like he's like never becomes old. And like it's like that. He's ever fresh. So I was like, his glories are always unlimited. He's like limitlessly able to be glorified, which is like pretty amazing.
Limitless.
Yeah.
Able to be glorifiable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was like pretty fire though. Yeah.
People have no experience of that in the material world. Absolutely. It's unfortunate. Anything else? Mataji's? Question?
So as I was sitting in class, I was thinking that Lord Brahma's experience on the lotus flower, it kind of seems that it's, I guess for lack of better words, a testament to how Krishna consciousness is the inherent nature of the spirit soul. Because ultimately when he was endeavoring by his own, that's when he wasn't able to really come to any realizations. But ultimately, you know, that knowledge was imparted to him. Well, through Krishna's flute, but so to speak. But so is that something that saying it in such a way, would that be in line with Guru Sadhana Sastra? Like I've never heard that before, but I was just wondering that.
That like Brahma searching out, that's like an inherent in the soul. Is like
It's indicative of how Krishna consciousness is the inherent nature of the spirit soul.
Yeah, well, I mean, Prabhupada said that in other places in a general way about like that. Like for instance, he would often cite like the soul is like intrinsically like spiritual because people they don't want to die and they want to they want to live forever and like they like that. So he would say that. So I think you can kind of like put that onto that and say that also. There's in one anyway. This is kind of like a separate point, but it's mentioned in the Brahma Samhita that Brahma when he I forget exactly, but when he performed tapasya and he heard that and he meditated, that was due to previous samskars that he began to search out like Vishnu or move in that direction. So that's there also, that a living entity, everybody's looking for Krishna or searching for Krishna, but then also one's previous impressions in the material world play an influence of that, of like one trying to search for Krishna or search for God and such like that. But it seems like you could say that.
In that section of the Brahma Samhita, does it expand upon what these samskars are of Lord Brahma?
No, it's not expanded. It's in the Sanskrit. I'd have to, it's mentioned previous impressions. I don't know if someone pull up that specific verse here real quick. It just mentions like Brahma due to like previous impressions. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's like right before the Chintamani prayers. Okay. Let's see. What text is it? 23. Okay, thank you. So, I'll read the translation, go to the Sanskrit. So, on coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. So then the word for word, purva samskara samskritaha, under the impulse of previous impressions. And, well, let me see here. Anyways, you can read the purport because it looks pretty like, I was going to avoid that because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur sometimes is like trying to read a PhD statement, and I'm not at that level. So Brahma's impulse for creation arises solely from his previous impressions. All jivas get their nature comfortably to their impressions of previous births, and accordingly their activity have a beginning. It is called the unseen, or the results of one's previous deeds. His natural impulse is formed according to the nature of the deeds done by him in the previous kalpa. Some of the eligible jivas also attain to the office of Brahma in this way. So, anyways, that verse is kind of like talking about that some. So his previous impressions. So, anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.